Good evening and welcome to today's session for the subject Strategies for Sustainable Design. As no learner has joined so far, I'll wait for some time, see if anyone joins, and then I'll start the session. It's 5 minutes now. I think I'll start today's session. Uh, so, welcome. This is week 5 or fifth week of live problem solving sessions for the subject strategies for sustainable design. Before we start this week's problem solving session, I just want to discuss a few questions or few doubts which were asked in previous week, but I couldn't address those doubts in last week. So I'll just take on those questions now. I don't think people who ask the doubts are present. However, as this video will be recorded, so people who asked those doubts can refer to the video for their doubt. So the first question about which there was a doubt in the previous session was this question. I'm showing you the answers now because this was from an assignment in previous weeks, and the assignment answers are already out, so I can show you the assignment answers. So this is one question for which there was a doubt in previous session. So this is about the non-zero or nearly zero, net zero or nearly zero energy buildings. And the question was that for targeting existing building or okay, for targeting NZEB for existing building falls under which goals for non-industrial countries. So you might have studied about the different goals for non-industrial countries, or the roadmap which non-industrial countries can follow, which can help them lead these countries to non net zero energy buildings, which can help them uh, help them realize the goal of having net zero energy buildings in that country. So this actually is taken from the NZEB's alliance, which is a network of organizations and people interested in promoting NZEB and implementing the NZEB goals or objectives in their particular organization or in that particular country, or on even on an individual level. So it is primarily envisioned as a forum for the building industry to transform itself by fostering innovation and design in their construction practices. So in order to do that, there is a roadmap which has been defined for non-industrial countries, and the different goals in that roadmap are divided into three categories. First, there are short-term goals, then there are middle-term goals, and then there are long-term goals. So short-term goals is something which the country can focus on doing right away. So the first order of things that the country needs to focus on would be the short-term goals. Middle term goals are the goals which will need a certain amount of time. They can't be done right away. They need some time to be focused upon or to get through. But in some stipulated time, the countries can focus on. After the short term goals, the next thing that the countries can focus on are the middle term goals. Then comes the long term goals. Long term goals is no, long-term goals are the goals which take a lot of systemic restructuring or a lot of time in order to accomplish them. So they can't be done right away. They are not short-term things. They take a lot of time. So those are long-term goals. So in short-term goals, you have things like forming a common vision. So at least form a common vision that you want to achieve such kind of nearly zero or net zero kind of building or building practices in your particular industry, in the particular government, as a professionals, in your local community, or in other health institutions. So having a vision is the first step or the first short-term goal. Then there are best practices. So it doesn't mean that you transform all the buildings into net zero or nearly zero energy buildings, but have some best practices which you can look up to, that yes, there are some examples of buildings where net zero energy building construction technique or building design has been achieved, which other industries or other individuals can look up to, that yes, this is something which can be repeated in their own building design or in their own building practice. Then third is the improvement of interior air quality. So in trying to improve the air quality in the interior of the particular building, that is another short-term goal. Then there is development of a local comfort model. So basically focusing on what local comfort is needed in a particular area, developing just a local comfort model for that particular area. Does not mean that model has to be applied to each and every building, but even having an idea of what lies, what kind of building practices or innovation techniques lies or is suitable for a local area. Development for of that also is a part of short-term goals. Then things like promoting energy efficiency and renewable technologies in the particular area. So uh, this can include several things. So for example, providing some incentives for use of such technologies can be uh, even can be monetary incentives, or uh, fast tracking the ease for the ease of adoption of such technologies. Also fast tracking, what do you call them, uh, fast tracking the process of getting permissions of adoption of such technologies in the buildings, etc. That also can be an example of how you can promote energy efficiency. Then also things like raising awareness, informing people and the organization about such energy efficient technologies can also be a way of promoting. So these are several examples of how energy efficiency can be promoted. Then there is things like low tech industrial infrastructure. So industry is a huge sector where things can be introduced quickly as compared to other sectors, where there might be the other sectors might be low on capital, or even uh, um, the ease in which the new technology can be implemented. So in that case, industrial infrastructure is one area where there is capital also, and many a times the ease of implementation of the new type of technology is also easy. So that also comes in short term goals. Then there are development of baseline models. So okay, this is the baseline which each of the new buildings or existing buildings should follow, and you can go above than this, but this is the baseline which every building should follow. So this can be done by assessing the energy and environmental building performance of buildings in general, and then learning from the best practices, and then developing the baseline which should be followed by most buildings. So these are the short term goals. Then comes you come to the middle term goals, which will need some time. They can't be done right away. So things like maximizing performance of low tech industrial infrastructure. So industrial infrastructure which is not very technology oriented, but even which has low tech, but initially there might be not a lot of capital or push towards adoption of net zero energy technologies, but after some time such technologies can be adopted. Okay. Then introducing high-tech solutions. So solutions which uh, require a lot of technical input or lot of technical know-how, and it requires a huge amount of technical restructuring, where the solution is being applied. That will take some time, and that is why it is put under middle term goals. Then things like developing database for building carbon footprint, which can keep record of what materials and services go into a building, what carbon footprint they are having, and what the buildings are doing to counter interact with that carbon footprint. footprint. Things like that also take a lot of time, as a lot of data collection and analysis of the building's footprint is needed to be done. Again, that is why it comes under the middle term goals. Then things like including a minimum target for renewable technology and energy efficiency, which a country can focus towards, that also comes as middle term goal. Then standardizing low tech NZDPs. So again, standardizing something also takes a lot of time. So again, that is under middle term. Then setting a minimum objective for connected loads. So connected loads, I think I'm not very sure, but it is related to the amount of electricity that is being used in a building. So minimum objective for what the connected load should be in the building, that can be set. Then targeting NZEB buildings for existing buildings. So applying NZEB technology in existing buildings is also a little difficult and can take a lot of time, because existing buildings already have their own tech and their own infrastructure on which they are operating. So transitioning from an existing infrastructure and existing technology to a new one again will take a lot of time. That is why again it has been put in middle term goals. And then there is measurement of interaction with energy grids. So how uh, the buildings are interacting with the energy grids, that also can be measured, but it will take a lot of time, same as the development of building database for carbon footprint. So again, that is also in middle term goals. Then comes the long term goals. So these are the goals which will take a longer time compared to the middle term goals also. So things like high tech and ZDB. So we saw that in middle term goals we are only focusing on low tech NZDBs, which does not require a lot of uh, we are only focusing on standardizing the low tech NZDB, so it does not require a lot of technical input. We are focusing on introducing high tech solutions in the middle term goals, but we are not focusing on standardizing these solutions. But in the long term goal, we are trying to standardize high tech and CPP adoption in the buildings and building practices. Then nearly zero emissions. So trying to achieve nearly zero emissions in the country or in the organization, that is 80% or more reduction of carbon CO2 emissions in the building, or counter impacting the carbon footprint of the building by 80% or more, is nearly zero emissions. Then there is smart plus low carbon grids. So uh, instead of relying on the existing energy grids, which energy comes from burning of fossil fuels like coal or other things, we can focus on creating smart and low carbon grids, which may be coming from renewable sources like solar energy or maybe wind energy or even hydropower. So focusing on developing that kind of smart and low carbon grids is also a part of long term goals, because it's a network of extensive infrastructure which will take a lot of time to set up. So again, that is in the long term goals. And then there are plus energy buildings. So this is not only zero energy, but it is plus energy. So it focuses on positive balance of energy and CO2 emissions. So the amount of CO2 emissions it causes, the amount of energy the building produces or embodies is greater than the amount of CO2 emission which the building is creating. So this is the NZDB roadmap for non-industrial countries. We'll go back to our question. So the question was regarding the targeting of NZDP for existing building. You can see targeting NZDP for existing building is a part of the middle term goal, and thus the answer for this is the middle term. So I hope this doubt is clear. I've also added an additional reference for you if you want to take a look at it. This is the page of the NZDB Alliance. So you can go and you can see the details about the different states, what they are trying to focus on regarding the alliance, what roadmap they are following, And you also have policies. So it defines what NZTBs are for different countries, what is there at national levels, what policies and regulation are there for different uh, countries, and at the state level also what roadmap is being followed. So this is the one for the state level. You can see for different state what roadmap they are following, that has been referred here. They also have case studies. So they have case studies from India, South Asia, and other regions also. So if you click onto here, it will give you case studies of different net zero energy buildings. So for example, this is a uh, factory or an industrial building which has been retrofitted, which was an existing building and has been retrofitted to convert into a net zero or nearly zero energy building. Similarly, there are other examples like this Garment Innovation Center or this multi-purpose office and residence. So you can even refer to several case studies here. So I hope this is a useful reference for you. We'll come back. So I hope this doubt is clear, which was asked in the previous session. Now we move on to the next one. Next one was that washing clothes in cold water falls under which category of impact as per climate mitigation. So this actually comes from this graphic which was shown to you in the lectures. So this graphic tells you that which kind of personal choices that an individual can make can help you to reduce your contribution to to the climate change. So which personal choices can help you mitigate climate impact and to what level? So there are three categories of levels that have been given in this graphic. There is low impact. So what choices will you make which will have some impact but the impact will be low? Then there is moderate impact. So these choices will enable you to have a greater impact, but it is still moderate and has medium amount of impact on uh, carbon mitigation or climate change mitigation. Then there are choices which have a high impact on climate change mitigation. So you can see these are calculated by calculating the cumulative emissions from each of these choices. So if you follow the regular way, what are the cumulative emissions, and if you try to follow the more energy efficient or the more climate sensitive way, what are the amount of emissions that you will reduce? Calculating that enables you to understand what kind of impact these will have. So you can see in the low impact you have uh, upgrading light bulbs. So upgrading light bulbs will have some impact on reduction of CO2 emissions or climate savings as they have mentioned here, but that will again be low impact because it is the climate savings which is mentioned in how much carbon dioxide you emit is less than zero point 0.2. I don't know what this TCO2e means, but this is a metric which they have used, and according to that metric, creating light bulbs will have a very low impact, and thus it is placed in the low impact category. Things like hang drying clothes instead of using a clothes dryer, recycling, so recycling your waste, and then washing clothes in cold water instead of using hot water for washing your clothes, and also replacing typical car with a hybrid car, so car which uses electricity and uh, fossil fuels both can have a moderate impact on the amount of carbon emission that will release or amount will have a moderate impact on climate mitigation. So these are the things which will have a moderate impact. Among these, the highest impact will be if you replace your typical car with a hybrid car and so on. Then the choices which you can make which will have the highest impact on climate change mitigation or the amount of CO2 that you release will have if you eat a plant-based diet. So eating a diet which comes from plant sources, not from animal sources. Then switching to an electric car, uh, uh, to going car free. So either you switch to an electric car or you just go car free, you use public transport, and buying green energy. These will also have high impact. Then avoiding one transatlantic flight. So you know the Atlantic Ocean, which is if you go from the eastern part of the world, the western part of the world, or across the Atlantic, if you avoid one such flight, the amount of fuel that you'll save the flight, uh, that is also having a high impact on the amount of climate savings. Then living a car free life, so using either bicycles or public transport, and having only uh, having fewer children, so uh, basically reducing the amount of people who are reliant on the natural resources. So these are the things which will have higher impact on climate savings or in mitigating climate change. So I hope this is clear. The question asked you about washing clothes in cold water, and you can see clearly washing clothes in cold water lies among the moderate impact. So it lies among the choice which can have a moderate impact on climate and climate change. So I hope this is also clear. We move on to the next doubt. So next doubt was about where does the sustainable use of resources fall in case of sustainability. So either it is economic, environmental, social, or energy saving. So according to the definition, I'm sorry if there was some doubt regarding this, but I'll have to iterate this again, that use of resources can often fall into economic, environmental, and social, all three categories. And the way we put the definition, so this is the definition which I showed you, and this is the one which you got in your question. So this definition talks about use of sustainable resources under the category of sustainability. It only talks about sustainable use of resources, and thus the answer for this was environment, because environmental sustainability largely focuses on environmental resources and making decisions based on long-term consequences, so using it sustainably. But the question which you were assigned, it was phrased differently, and it was phrased in a way that you must live on the returns of Earth's natural resources rather than consuming them. So it basically focuses on uh, the economic theory of capital and then the returns that you get on the capital. So it focuses on sustainability that way. So whatever resources which you have, the capital or the bulk of the resources should not be depleted. You should only use the resource which can be regenerated easily. So thus the concept of returns of Earth's natural resources come, which was shared in this definition from the economic sustainability. So it says that we must live on the returns of Earth's natural resources rather than consuming them. So only advice which I have for you regarding solving this kind of questions is pay very strong attention to how sustainability is defined for environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and social sustainability, and choose the answers focusing on that only. I'm sorry if there was some miscommunication or some doubt in previous sessions. I hope this clarifies your doubt. Okay, so the next doubt, which was there in the previous session, it was not a doubt exactly, but it was a question, additional question related to SDGs and sustainability. So I think in one lecture, there is some discussion about mental mapping of SDGs and sustainability. So, as you all know, that SDGs are not only for policy making, but they're also for public communication. So, to a general stakeholder or a person who is not uh, technical. Who is not related to the technical field of sustainability, or who is not a sustainability professional, still we can use SDGs to communicate what we want regarding sustainability to them. If we want to communicate what we want regarding sustainability from the stakeholder to employee stakeholder engagement, and if we want to outreach the concerned actors to promote sustainability, we require to make such public communication. And in order to make such public communication, it is essential that even the public understands what sustainability is and how SDGs are related to that. So, for increasing public engagement and support, it is important to increase the adoption of a certain mindset or mental mapping of which SDGs the public considers falls under which kind of sustainability issues. So, to understand public's view about sustainability, a kind of mental mapping can be done, focusing on that which uh, messages are more likely to be accepted by the public, based on the fact that the public follows the information which is consistent with their own beliefs about what is correct regarding what kind of sustainability issues. So, if we follow along the lines of cultural beliefs of the public, our ideas about the initiatives of sustainability are more likely to spread through social networks, and it is more likely that the public will follow through our initiatives and programs of sustainability or implementation of the SDGs. So, in order to do that, it is first important to understand that culturally which kind of population follows which kind of sustainability views or values, and which kind of SDGs they place in which sector, so social, economic, or environmental sector, where they place the certain issues. So you can see here, this is an example of such kind of mental mapping in which they have mapped that this is the line which follows the environmental sector, this is the social sector, and this is the economic sector, and the public where the particular sustainability issues or the SDG falls in which sector. So you can see there is a clear cluster for falling more towards the environmental sector. Then there is a clear sector following more towards the social sector, but a part of this is more related to the environmental, and another part is falling more towards the economic. However, none of the SDGs fall greatly into the economic sector, but things like poverty, education, peace, gender equality, and growth follow a little bit towards the economic sector. So this is what is perception of a certain kind of population, which has been studied by this study. So I have linked this study for you. So if you want to take a look at how they created this mental map, you can go through this study. They collected the public views on SDGs across several countries, and based on their surveys, they created this mental map of which uh, SDG lies in which category, which either social, environmental, or economic. And you can see they had several results, and based on that, they came up with this final mental map of SDGs and for the particular countries that they studied. So if you want to take a better look at how this mental mapping can be done, I'll suggest that you refer this article. I have linked this article here. Okay, So I think this is the last doubt from the previous session. Now I'll move on to this week's problem solving. So this week you have covered EIA, or the environmental impact assessment, and life cycle analysis, which was covered in two parts, part A and B. So in the previous week, only one subjective assignment was assigned for this week. Give me a moment. Okay. So in the last session, only one subjective question was assigned, which I'll show you here. So the question was that show the life cycle of any one household item similar to the one discussed in the lecture about steel. It should depict every step starting from the material extraction till the waste or disposal management. How you can do it? That it can be done like an illustration, like a flowchart, or even with descriptive, in a descriptive way, where you can just write how the different stages are happening. So this is basically a general skeleton of uh, the flowchart of life cycle assessment. So basically it starts with the collection of raw materials or extraction of raw materials. So raw materials for any product come from a certain source. It can be a natural or it's usually comes from natural resources, and then they are extracted through extraction ways, and then the raw material is obtained. So the raw material extraction stage is also called cradle. So you might have heard cradle to cradle and cradle to grave life cycles. So cradle to cradle and cradle to life cycle, cradle to grave life cycle vary in the way that one focuses on circular economy or reuse and recycling of particular products, and another focuses on or follows the way where raw materials are used, and then at the end of raw materials are used to make the product, and at the end of the life cycle it is disposed and can't be reused or recycled further. So basically it starts with extraction of the raw materials, which then further go for processing. So manufacturing of the product from the raw material takes place at this stage, uh, and then after the product is manufactured, it goes on to the transportation stage, where the product is distributed to either retail stores or sometimes to the end user also. Then it goes to the retail and use phase. So if it is going to the retail store, it is getting transported to the retail, but if it is going to the end user, it directly moves on to the use phase. So after either directly moving on to the use phase, or after retail is someone purchases it and it goes on to the use phase. So in this phase, the product is being used by the end user, and after its use, after the life of the product finishes, either the end user can send it to waste to be decomposed, or sent to landfills or some waste management area, or they can send it into recycling, where the product will, or the materials of the product will be recycled, and then it will further move on as a raw material for a different product, and again the cycle will repeat. So as I said, cradle is referred to as the raw material or the extraction of the raw material. So you have different types of life cycles. There is uh, cradle to cradle, where you are recycling the product. So at the end of the life cycle of the product, you recycle the materials, or you recycle the product in such a way that again it is acting as raw material or maybe even energy source for a different, for production of a different kind of product. Then there is cradle to grave, where it goes for decomposition, or uh, goes to a landfill or to a solid waste management site. So that kind of a life cycle is called cradle to grave. This part of the life cycle where raw material is extracted and then it goes to the production area, so to the industry where manufacturing of particular product will be done, that part of the life cycle is also called cradle to gate. So I hope this main skeletal of life cycle and life cycle assessment is clear to you. uh, the question asks the question asks to take any household item and discuss its life cycle assessment. So, for our example, I have taken the example of plastic bags. So, how plastic bags are, uh, the material for it is extracted, the raw material is extracted, then the processing, then use, and then waste disposal and recycling is done. I'll discuss all of that, and using that I'll show you how you can make the life cycle assessment or the life cycle flowchart for it. So plastic bags, they begin their life as crude oil. The crude oil, which is obtained from natural crude oil reserves, it is heated until it produces ethylene gas, and then this ethylene gas is converted into polyethylene through chemical reactions, and this polyethylene is then forced through holes to make it into a string. This string is then stretched and dyed and made into plastic bags. And uh, so the initial part of this extraction of ethylene gas from crude oil, and then conversion of ethylene into polyethylene, that falls under the raw material extraction stage of the life cycle. Next stage, which is once you make the polyethylene, you cut, stretch and dye the polyethylene to make it into a plastic bag, which is then imprinted with the particular company's logo. That part is called the processing. So from the polyethylene that is obtained from the crude oil, you process it, you stretch and dye it and print it with the logo to make it a plastic bag. That part of it is the stage 2, which is the processing part. So these are the first two stages of the life cycle of a plastic bag. Then after processing, it is transported and shipped to retail stores. uh, so that is the stage 3 of the life cycle of the plastic bag, which is transport. And then comes the stage 4. After being shipped to the retail stores, plastic bags are used either to carry groceries or other supplies. So this is the stage 4 of uh, the either retail or use of the plastic bag. So most plastic bags are used only one time. So and they are mostly used for an average of 20 minutes before either they are recycled or they are thrown away. So again, focusing on the retail and use phase, uh, plastic bags are either used for carrying your supplies or even at the retail stores, as we saw here. Then comes the last stage, which is the uh, waste or recycling stage of the plastic bag. So either plastic bags are sent into waste, into the solid waste management systems, or they are recycled. So more than 98% of the plastic bags they are discarded, and they either go into the landfill. So they reach the landfills if responsive solid waste management practices are being followed. But if the solid waste management practices that are being followed are not very responsive, they can even end up going into the oceans. So this is if you send the plastic bags to waste. If you another option for this stage is that plastic bag can be recycled also, and then they can further act as raw material for other plastic products. So focusing on all these stages, you can make um, flowchart like this, starting from here, raw materials. So the raw material for plastic bag is crude oil, which is obtained from natural reserves of crude oil. So crude oil is heated to produce ethylene gas, and then that is converted into polyethylene. So that is the raw material stage. Then coming to the processing stage, where polyethylene is cut, stretched and dyed, and it becomes a plastic bag, which is then imprinted with the company's logo and is ready to be shipped. Then comes the transport stage, where the plastic bags are shipped to the retail stores. Then comes the retail and use phase. So plastic bags are used to carry groceries and other supplies, and most of them are used only one time. After that, there are two options: either they are converted into waste, or they go into recycling. So if they are converted into waste, they are discarded, and their life ends. They either go to the landfills or to the oceans. If they are recycled, they act as raw material for other plastic products. So it is very basic, very skeletal life cycle of a plastic bag. You can even make a and uh, more detailed life cycle, or you can carry out a more detailed life cycle assessment for plastic bags, as is done in this case. So you can see uh, the skeletal structure again is the same. That is the manufacturing of pellets from crude oil, then manufacturing of the plastic products, then consumption, which is the retail and use phase, then their end of life, from which either they go to the landfill or they go into the recycling. But then there are other uh, further smaller steps associated to this entire life cycle of the plastic bag also. For example, in the manufacturing only, sometimes pellet spillage can happen. So again, this goes out in the environment, and it is neither treated nor recycled. Then even after the consumption, sometimes it goes into if it's not a properly constructed product, it sometimes goes into remanufacturing or refurbishment, or even after a small time use, it again goes into refurbishment. So again, it follows this flow. Sometimes after consumption for one kind of use, you again reuse certain plastic products again and again. So it again goes into this loop of reuse. So for example, you get a plastic bottle for packaged beverage, but after using it for having the packaged beverage, you again reuse the plastic bottle for maybe storing water or storing oil or something else. Similar for other single use food containers, sometimes people throw them away, then they go into this stage. But sometimes many people keep reusing the plastic food containers and things like that. So if that kind of uh, pathway is followed, this kind of reuse loop is made. Then sometimes at the end of life, I, as I mentioned, either they go into a landfill when solid waste management practices are followed, or they are directly discharged into the environment. So from here they can go into water bodies, even to the oceans. Also, they go into sometimes they go into incineration also. So in the incineration process, the plastic waste is used to create energy. So the waste is burnt, and the energy from that is sometimes used to power manufacturing of other plastic products. Even from the landfill, through landfill mining, certain plastic products can be recovered, and then they can be recycled for again to follow uh, the life cycle loop. So these are some examples, or this is one example of how more details can be added to your life cycle assessment of the particular product which you try to follow. This actually comes from this source. So if you want to read details about how this life cycle assessment was done or it was created, you can go on to this study which shows how the life cycle assessment for plastic bags was done. It also goes into detail about how when some waste is either from the spillage of plastic pellets or irresponsible disposal of plastic waste, how plastic is leached into the environment. This goes on to the detail about that also. So if you want to read in detail, you can refer to this study. So this is one example. Okay, moving on to another example, which is of the carpet. So this again, I think this example was discussed in the lectures itself. So this shows you the life cycle of the carpet. So it starts from virgin material input, which then goes on to the processing. So the carpet is made. Then it goes on to the next stage, which is the use of the carpet. So it misses the transport and retail part, but you can add it here if you want. Then it goes on to the use stage. So there are also some losses which end up into the waste, which come from here, which come in the processing stage. Then some of this carpet is reused, which is only 0.4%. Then some of this also goes into recycling, and then the fibers from the recycling of the carpet are then again reused to manufacture new carpets. So that is about 0.7% of the total carpets that are manufactured. Some of it also goes into incineration, so it is incinerated to extract energy from it, which is then used for other manufacturing processes or sometimes for other things. 85% of all the carpet that is created from virgin material input goes into the landfills. Some of it is also collected for recycling, but even in the recycling processes, there is a lot of recycling losses that occur, which again goes into the landfill. This is another example of life cycle assessment for a carpet. Another you might remember was this Econil carpet material, which again followed the closed loop or cradle to cradle life cycle, or cradle to cradle life cycle, because it focused on um, recycling the carpet fiber or material and then again reusing it to create the Econil fiber, which is again used to make yarn for carpets. So this is another example of carpet material, just Econil. Another example is another example can be uh, the white paper which you use in your household. So this is example of the life cycle of the paper. So it is extracted from trees, which is the raw material for it. It is then transported and taken to uh, the material processing factory. So it can be in different stages. For example, timber processing factories where the timber is debarked and chipped, which is then moved on to the paper processing factory, where certain chemical processes occur or are performed to make it into the paper, which you know. So it involves several stages like craft processing, goes through hydropulper, then goes through screening, then it is bleached to remove the colored pigment to make it white. Then again it goes through screening, then through vortex cleaner again. Drying and cutting of the paper is done, and then again it goes into distribution. So this is the distribution or transport stage, after which it is used by the end user. After the end user, again it can go through waste retrieval, and sometimes it can again go through the like hydropulper was used, again it can go through the same hydropulper screening and de-inking process to make new paper from the paper waste. So this is another kind of example of life cycle of white paper which you use. If you want to go into the details of how this life cycle analysis was done, you can refer to this paper which I have linked here. So this is the study which I referred to. It tells you about the raw material of paper manufacturing, how different raw materials are required, how they are processed, how they are transported, how they are used and reused, how waste management is done, how recycling is done, etc. So if you want to read further, you can go to this study as well. Another example which was there in your lectures only was example of this wool. So this is the life cycle assessment of wool. So how from production it then goes into processing, then into distribution, then usage and recycling, and then to its end of life. If you want to see more examples of life cycle assessment or how life cycle assessment is done, how you can do it, I have linked an important resource here, which is the UNEP's life cycle initiative. So if you go to this page, you can read about life cycle thinking, how you can think along uh, the LCA lines for each product, what approaches you can follow, and how life cycle management for different kind of products can be done. So there. Then it also tells you about the benefit of life cycle approach. So at each stage, what kind of benefit can be generated from following the life cycle approach. You also have a lot of resources. For example, they have reports and training materials. They have a lot of reports on life cycle assessment or the life cycle initiatives, how life cycle assessment can be done for different types of products. So for example, here you can see LCA for single use supermarket food packaging, and what alternatives can be used. Then there are several pilot projects for life cycle assessment. There is LC assessment for single-use face masks also, and several other things. So if you want to further read about how you can do life cycle assessment for different household materials or the materials which you might know also, you can visit this page and you can read detailed reports about several different materials. So I hope this is helpful. So this was all for this week, as this week we only had one subjective question. If there are still any further doubts, please go ahead and ask. I am seeing Hema's is 4-hour golden rule updated to 5-hour. I am not sure, Hema, which rule you are talking about. Is it the recycle, reuse, reduce, recycle, reuse rule you are talking about? Okay, I am not sure. I'll have to check about this. I'll check the updated or the updates on the 4-hour or 5-hour rule, and I'll let you know in the next session. Any other doubts? I see Tanmay and Seema. I discussed the doubts which you had in previous sessions. I hope those are clear now. If you have any other doubts, please.
Ma'am, I have joined very late. I cannot hear. I'll see your video after that.
Okay, okay, Seema, you can check it in the video. But I
Yes.
discussed that part. I think you asked about uh,
Mental map.
yes, mental mapping. So
Yes.
I discussed that this is the mental mapping which I told. So I told you about how mental mapping can be used, and I also shared this paper. So if you go to this paper, you can see how they have created mental maps for SDGs across different countries. So you can go into the all the details of how mental mapping for SDGs and sustainability can be done.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other doubts? Tanmay, you are asking about assignment 4. I think answers for all assignments are out now. So if you go to the particular assignment, you can see the answer there itself.
What is mitigation and adaptation related to both equally?
Okay, so mitigation is basically, uh, as you know, that uh, we have already created certain kind of impact on the Earth's environment due to the amount of carbon or carbon dioxide that we have already generated and emitted into our environment, and even other greenhouse gases that we have already emitted into our environment, and because of that climate change is already occurring. So mitigation is something which we can do in order to counter the impact that we have created. So things like carbon sequestration or reduction of carbon that we are producing. So maybe adopting renewable energy so that amount of carbon dioxide that is produced in non-renewable energy like burning fossil fuel, that is reduced. So whatever we can do to mitigate the impact that we have already created, that is called mitigation. And adaptation is something which you do in order to be ready for the changes or the impacts that are going to occur due to climate change. So, forming resilience building techniques or making infrastructure that are resilient to the impact of climate change. So, maybe using nature based resources like for stormwater management, maybe doing urban greening for uh, either for carbon sequestration or for air purification or for reducing urban heat island effect. These kind of things, these come into adaptation. So mitigation is something which we are doing to reduce the impact which we have already produced, and adaptation is something which we are doing to adjust into the environment which already has the impacts, and we have to live with the impact. So we are adapting to the impacts which are already there. So I hope
Okay, ma'am.
that is
Thank you.
clear.
Thank you, ma'am.
Tanmay, you are asking that you want the reference material for the this question for World Wildlife Fund, how many planners will be required? So, Tanmay, I think you can get the reference material in the lectures itself. Uh, so in the week 4 lectures, you will get the reference material for this. But if you are unable to find, I'll post the reference material for this in our shared files. So with this week, in this week's PPT only, I'll attach the reference material for it because I don't have it right now in the presentation, so it's difficult for me to find and share. But I'll share this reference material in this week's PPT. Is that okay? What is EF latest link? I could not understand. For LCA calculation, I provided you this link. If you can see, this is UNEP's life cycle initiative. I provided the link for this. Uh, so if you go and click through to the link, this is the UNEP's life cycle initiatives. You'll get a lot of reports and training materials to understand life cycle assessment and how life cycle assessment can be done for different kind of products. uh, Emission factor, uh, which session is this related to? Is this for week 4, Tanmay?
No, just I like to know about the for as you said the LCA study. So
Mm-hmm.
I just gone through some documents. So is it required to the carbon footprints analysis for in the terms of CO2 for CO2 for raw material extraction phase, process, use
So,
phase.
if it
So
is
that's
not
why.
related to the sessions, I don't have the material for it right now, but I can get to you about this in the next session.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seema, you are asking how habitat is going to look like in future. This is a very
Yes, ma'am.
general. Yes.
Case study, please explain a little.
So, habitat in different areas is going to look very differently according to how climate impacts and other environmental impacts are occurring there. In some areas, there is a lot of pollution, and in some parts of the world, there is a lot of climate impact. Compared to the other parts, the climate impact is less. Again, depending on what kind of climatic region it is, the type of impact the climate will have also varies a lot. So if you talk about impact on habitat in general, you can focus on the things like there is going to be a steady rise in the atmospheric and ocean temperatures. Um, the amount of extreme weather events are going to increase steadily as our climate changes, and there are a lot of things that will happen as our climate changes. So if you want to go make a generalistic report on habitat, you can refer to the UNEP's report on climate change and how climate change is going to affect our entire planet. And if you want to go into detail about one particular kind of habitat, you can go further and study the detail about that kind of habitat. I don't have a very general answer of this, but these based on our projections of how our environment and our atmosphere is going to change, based on climatic events and climatic impacts, you can follow those reports. If you would like me to share, I can share you the particular reports in the next session. Would that be okay?
Uh, Nikita, I just have a one question that just due to I 10-15 minutes I joined later, and the last stage when you are discuss about the washing machine impact related work clothing. So that I just gone through the whatever the figures and document you referring. Most probably, as I gone through, same documents already is there in the reference which already provided. I think it is little bit different the document.
No, no, these are the same. I checked it twice. This is the same
Okay.
exact figure that is there in your lectures also.
Okay. Because I try to find very rigorously, but I not able to find that time in the
Uh,
because I'm
this is
search.
I can even show you. Wait, if you give
Okay,
me some
maybe in if it
seconds.
is in image mode, maybe I missed it because I keywords I also searched from keywords but not able to find. And one more thing, can you quickly last? I submitted in the forum three questions. So quickly, can you just give the reference point and that three questions?
Let's go one thing at a time. Let me show you this first, and then
Yeah,
we go on
sure.
to the
Thank you.
next. Okay, so this is the course. And I think it was in week 2 where we talk about climate change mitigation and the way forward. So in this lecture itself, uh, you can find that. So you can see the even the front page of this lecture is the same graphic that we are talking about. So in this lecture itself, this graphic about which kind of choices you can make and what impact they have, this has been discussed in lecture 3 of week 2, which is the lecture on climate change mitigation and the way forward. Okay. Next
Okay,
question, you
okay.
were talking about that you have submitted to the forum.
And as you told also that environment sustainability, that should be say resource related one question I have asked. You also
Okay.
agree with some extent with my
That
point.
question also I discussed here today. So these are the two questions in which there was a doubt. So I explained that although we talk about resource sustainability in economic, environmental and social, all three kind of sustainability, the way resource sustainability is framed in the question is different. So this is the question which I shared with you and which I explained, which talked about uh, just sustainable use of resources or natural resources, and that is why environment was the answer to this. But if you focus on resource sustainability in terms of considering resource sustainability as living on Earth's returns of natural earth resources rather than consuming them. So it focuses on resource sustainability in the way that it is an economic resource and we cannot consume the capital but only the returns that are coming from the capital. So it follows a more economical view of how we can use the resources. So even this is the environmental sustainability that was explained in the lectures, that if you focus on the environmental resources and only the intergenerational decisions or how we use that, in that way if you define sustainability it falls under environmental sustainability. But if you follow that capital and then returns on the capital, if you follow that way of defining sustainability, it falls under the economic sustainability umbrella. So this again I explained in detail. So if you go through this week's uh, video, you can again see that. So this is why what I explained. Any other question you had a doubt about?
Mm, one more questions I have submitted. Just I have to check.
Was it the NZEBs?
Yeah, maybe I
Because
check.
I think you had a doubt about that also. So this is the part about the NZEBs.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, let me share. So this is the part about the NZEB alliance and how goals are separated in short term, middle term, and long term basket. And
Mm-hmm.
your doubt was about what? Sorry, your doubt was about targeting NZEBs for existing building, and the answer was middle term goals. So you can see in this graphic itself,
Maybe.
in
Yeah.
the middle term goals,
40. Yeah.
targeting NZEB for existing buildings falls under middle term goals. So again, that is the answer to this.
Right.
Anything else?
No, not. any other things.
Okay. Okay. So I hope this was helpful. Anyone else if has any doubt?
Okay, sorry, one more thing that I discussed that potential energy saving, the building and transportation, that point, that
That I
assignment.
discussed in previous session itself. That the information that we were given in the question was about the US share of uh, energy consumption in industry and buildings, and we solved it according to that. But according to your answer, you think a different option will be correct. So I think
Mhm.
the course instructor only can answer that particular question. I cannot answer that because there is no additional material for it. Whatever material was available in the lectures, I already shared it with you.
Because of the from the graph, it seems maybe building and transportations are the higher potential. So that's why.
So that you can only the course instructor then can clear that doubt. I'm unfortunately I cannot go into any further details about how which option is correct. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, okay.
And one doubt is how many earth is required?
What did you say, Seema?
Earth is required basically for the 3386 calories. How can I calculate?
3386 calories. What? Which question are you talking about?
This is the week 5 quiz question like that. I have
Okay.
so many doubted questions. I have seen some formulas also, but I have calculated not find any answer.
Okay. Week 5. So you haven't gotten the answer for week five's question so far. So unfortunately, I can't solve these questions for you because you are supposed to do these on your own. And after the answers are out, I can give you more information about this week's question. I am only allowed to solve questions from previous weeks, not the ones which are assigned in this week. Okay. So once the answers are out, I can show you in detail.
No, any clue, any book regarding that?
You only have to follow whatever is there in the particular week's lectures. None of the questions are out of what is there in the lectures. So you only follow what is there in the
It's
lectures.
today's lecture
Yes.
related to today.
Not
Okay,
today's
okay.
lecture. You see week 5 here.
Yeah.
Wait, let me show you.
Course contents, I mean.
Yes.
Okay, ma'am.
So you see week 5 here, you have 3 lectures. Environment, one on environmental impact assessment and two on life cycle analysis. You follow these lectures, and from this only you can get the material uh, for solving all of these questions. If there are still any doubts, I can come to them when the answers for these questions are out. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Anything else? If there are no further questions, I'll close the session for today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you all for attending. I hope you got your doubts cleared. For the further doubts which you have, I'll get to you in the next session. Thank you all for attending, and we'll meet again next week on Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you.